Did you type hashtag Trudeau must go on social media over the weekend? If you did, you're not alone. Thousands upon thousands of people did the same. And today I sit down and interview the man who revived the hashtag, as well as three outstanding everyday Canadians who joined in, adding their own bio with the hashtag to let Canada and the leaders know that enough is enough when it comes to this divisive prime minister. Drea Humphrey here with Rebel News. And boy, did Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada, have a huge past week. I mean, not only was it the 3-year anniversary of Prime Minister Blackface, he also was booed in the UK.
You fascist bastard, Trudeau! Canadian, hang your guts! You bastard! Trudeau! Fascist bastard!
Now listen, I know what you're thinking. You know, Trudeau gets booed in many of the places he goes, so what's so out of the ordinary about that? Well, it appears that the booing is in connection with the fact that Trudeau was caught singing Bohemian Rhapsody just 2 days before the Queen's funeral. The same Queen he told you and I he was so shooken up about's death because she was one of his favorite people.
It is with the deepest of sorrow that we learn today of the passing of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. She was our Queen for almost half of Canada's existence, and she had an obvious, deep, and abiding love and affection for Canadians. She served us all with strength and wisdom for 70 years as we grew into the diverse, optimistic, responsible, ambitious, and extraordinary country we are today. As her 12th Canadian Prime Minister, I'm having trouble believing that my last sit-down with her was my last. I will so miss those chats. She was thoughtful, wise, curious, helpful, funny, and so much more. In a complicated world, her steady grace and resolve brought comfort and strength to us all. Canada is in mourning. She was one of my favorite people in the world, and I will miss her so.
He's so good at drama, isn't he? But apparently he's not that good at being a prime minister, at least to thousands of people who don't appear to be part of a small fringe minority. You see, I sit down and quickly interview Marty Belanger from Alberta, who just started a post basically saying enough is enough, this one that you're looking at here, and it took off. So many Canadians were ready to join in that this hashtag TrudeauMustGo started trending globally on Twitter. And not just that, it reached over 500,000 views before Twitter made it disappear from the trending list. But that certainly hasn't stopped people from using the hashtag, although if you're Trudeau's buddy, longtime pal, and former principal secretary, you might not think it's people at all. Instead, you might think it's bots, because it's so unfathomable that people are tired of Prime Minister Trudeau and his divisive rhetoric. But today we're going to sit down and talk to Marty right now, and then we're going to jump into the other three people that I just selected out of some of the posts that I saw. I was sharing so many of them. I mean, Prime Minister Trudeau's own brother did a post. You got to check them out if you haven't already. I'll go ahead and link some of them in the written report below, but let's listen to what Marty had to say. How did this all begin?
All right. So Marty, the man of the hour or the man of a few days when it comes to Twitter trends, that is the Trudeau must go trend that has been revived. Apparently you're the man who's revived that. So just tell us, how did that happen?
It almost didn't happen because I wasn't even supposed to be home last week. I was supposed to be out in the mountains. You know, my nickname, my moniker is Marty Up North, and I'm known for my hiking adventures. And I ended up staying at home, and you know, I often get on Twitter in the morning, kind of thing, and just do my thing. And I was in a little bit of a debate with somebody, and somehow or other, the topic of an older video of Justin Trudeau talking on that show came up in the debate, and somebody was arguing with me that what Trudeau had said was something else, but the video was in French, and so I took the time to look at that video. I speak French; it's my native language, so I took the time to look at that video and put some captions to it, and then use and send it to that individual, and you know, and the discussion ended. But when I was doing that and listening to the video and putting thoughts on paper and translating it, I realized, you know, here's the prime minister of the country basically saying that if you're unvaccinated for whatever personal reason, that you're often, you know, his words, you know, paraphrasing, that you're anti-science, misogynistic, racist, and then he goes on further saying, you know, in the interview with the host, it's my job as a prime minister. I'm questioning myself. Do we tolerate these people? And then he went on further to say, you know, you guys in Quebec did the right thing. 80% of you did the right thing. I'm like, wow.
Mais il y a aussi des gens qui sont farouchement opposés à la vaccination.
Qui sont extrémistes.
Qui ne croient pas dans la science, qui sont souvent misogynes, souvent racistes aussi. C'est un petit groupe, mais qui prend de la place. Et là, il faut faire un choix en tant que leader, en tant que pays. Est-ce qu'on tolère ces gens-là ou est-ce qu'on dit, ben voyons, la plupart des gens, presque 80% des Québécois ont fait ce qu'il fallait faire, se sont fait vacciner, on veut revenir aux choses qu'on aime faire.
So as I reflected on that, I realized he's using a broad brush to label a group of people, which in my definition is equivalent to bigotry, and then he used that as a basis for discrimination through his mandates. He's dehumanizing us, and you know, and we've all been through COVID and everything else, and we've all struggled one way or another. And I'm trying to get past COVID. You know, when people look at my Twitter handle, I'm trying to get past that. Mm-hmm. And then, but whatever, he said that, and I just, something boiled inside. So I wanted to I just did that tweet.
Yeah,
and,
well, oh, sorry. We know the video.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, we know the video very well at Rebel News, and it was very surreal. You know, I had the same response you did. It was surreal that it was happening, especially from a prime minister who can't even remember how many times he's done blackface, but.
Show me around your food.
Now, I'm about to let people see some of the faces that joined on to the Trudeau Must Go 2022 version. In just a minute, we're going to sit with them and find out why they wanted to go ahead and do their own post after you did your post. But just touch a little bit on the whole bot hysteria. What happened there? I've seen people who thought you were a bot, then they thought you were not a bot, but you're working with bots to make this happen. And I saw you going back and forth with Trudeau's very good wingman, Mr. Gerald Butts. So
Gerald, the cleanup man in this point. Yeah, you know, so I do that tweet. I go away, and then actually disclosure. So some people say that the tweet had started in the U.S. or somewhere else. I mean, that was the first thing, right? So and I'm like, no, it didn't. I started with it. And sure, maybe it looks similar to other tweets, but I mean, if you're in this world, you know, nothing's ever original. So me posting a picture of myself in some sort of comment, of course, it's not original. You know, lots of people have done that, but in that moment, it was original to me. Mm-hmm. And then I see that note saying, oh, you know, it's obviously a bot, and somebody else probably brought my attention to it, and already the trend was taking on, and you know. Maybe I would have ignored Gerald, but now I'm already being flooded, and I'm looking at these things going, wow, it's resonating with people. So I felt I had to do something. So I just grabbed, you know, my phone, and I turned it on to myself, and I went in the backyard and I just made a video.
I'm bilingual. I'm a father of 4. I live in Alberta, in the country.
I just want to live and be left alone. But in the last 7 years, Trudeau's been taking this country down a bullshit path. And I'm fed up, and I posted that, and my post resonated with others who are also fed up. So we're not bots. And the mainstream that's missing the story, this is the story. 200,000 Canadians and climbing are pissed off at Trudeau. That's the story.
Gerald said something like, okay, I have no doubt, Martin, that you're real.
Yeah.
But that's, in that story now, that's typical of, I hate to say it, it's typical of both sides, accusing each other of being bots and things like that. And I think we're past that, because I think the important thing to recognize now is that this really resonates with people.
Yeah.
And that's the story. And that's why I'm glad you're asking, because the story now is not about bots. It's the fact that people are waking up. We're fed up with Justin's divisive policies, and people challenge us like, oh, it's the French video, you're misinterpreting the translation, and it's a one-time event. It's like, no, I can find so many, and you guys have done it. We can find examples of this in English.
I mean, when Aaron O'Toole talks about, oh yes, we need to unite people, we need to bring people together, he's talking about defending the rights of people who are anti-vax, to endanger my kids and endanger us all of future lockdowns and risk all of us having a slower recovery. If you make a choice, a personal choice, to not get vaccinated, then I will have no sympathy for you when you come to me and said, oh, but I can't go out to a restaurant with my friends, or I'm not being allowed to go to the gym, or my employer is telling me I have to continue to work from home.
And let's not nitpick on the language. It's a pattern. It's a way of thinking for him. He's divisive.
The small fringe minority of people who are on their way to Ottawa, or who are holding unacceptable views that they're expressing, do not represent the views of Canadians who have been there for each other, who know that following the science and stepping up to protect each other is the best way to continue to ensure our freedoms, our rights, our values as a country.
It's a moment of me saying, hey, this is me and you're wrong. And it resonated with people. Well,
most people know, especially if they're Twitter users, Twitter is certainly not a bot-free program, but anybody who clicks on those Trudeau must go posts can see that the vast majority, anyways, I clicked and shared many, are just everyday outstanding Canadians who have had enough. So thanks for being on here to prove maybe give yourself a pinch or something that you're not.
Do I need something to show that today is actually September 19th? This
yeah, exactly right.
Tell you what, proof that the Queen's funeral was today. God bless Her Majesty and God save the King. So this is not fake. This is today.
This is real time. And now we're going to see some of the faces who joined the campaign that was revived in 2022. Well, what a crazy place the land of Twitter is. And this is my first time interviewing bots. So thanks for being on Rebel News, guys. So I'm happy to have you. I just wanted to interview a few people. I was sharing over and over and over posts, and I thought, you know what, I should just interview a few people just to show what this sort of online tweet movement is about, and that everybody is different, but we're all Canadians. And so I'm going to start with you, Harveen. So again, thanks for being on Rebel News, but tell us what made you do your Trudeau Must Go post?
Oh my gosh. Well, I wanted to, I wanted to dispel the myth around the stereotype of who these people are, of who the freedom fighters are. Mm-hmm. I'm so keenly aware of the stereotype that that has been peddled around like since the beginning of the protests, that these people they look a certain way, they're from a certain part of Canada, they think all a certain way about multiple different topics, and they're vastly uneducated, rural, racist, and white. Actually, right, was one of the big things. Like they're neo-Nazi, they're Nazis, or they're alt-right, et cetera, et cetera. And so I'm none of those things. I can say with, confidence and pride. Like I'm a brown woman from East Africa. I'm an immigrant. I came here with my family in 1994. We have a small family business. My family worked hard to, make a life for the three of us. I've got, two brothers, and I just wanted people to literally see my face, actually, and it was the moment to decide, like, okay, do I just put words or do I put a photo? And then I realized it's actually the photo that is going to do all the talking because of how simplistic the understanding is.
Well, and speaking of photos, there is sort of a narrative going around that a lot of these photos are bots. I made the joke earlier, but I know, Devon, you kind of took things a step further and ended up making a video to prove you're not a bot. So tell us what made you do your Trudeau Must Go post, who you are, and then why you had to do the video.
Yeah, so my name is Devon. I'm originally from Jamaica. I was born in Jamaica. I came here in 2014 to study my advanced diploma in energy systems engineering technology. I also have a degree in industrial engineering. My background is engineering. My background is project management and entrepreneurial activities. So I did the Trudeau Must Go post for the same reason why I went to the Freedom Convoy protests, and for the same reasons why I went to the Ontario Queen's Park protest. I went there to show people that they are not alone, because before the Freedom Convoy, people felt like they were alone. The amount of how do I say it, of mental stress that people were going through, it was unimaginable. People were literally considering suicide before Freedom Convoy came to Ottawa. So the Trudeau Must Go post is the same thing for me, to let people know that they're not alone. Because some people, the liberals or the leftists or whatever it is we want to call them, think that the posts are for them. It's not for them. The posts are for the people who are feeling alone and feel like there's nobody that they can lean on and there's nobody that they can speak to. So these posts are reaching them and they're reaching back to us. So after I made that post, I saw, I think it's Mark, I can't recall the gentleman's name. I saw where he was in a battle between him and Gerald Butts.
Trudeau's friend.
Yeah, saying that we are bots. I'm like, what the hell, we're bots? I'm like, no, forget this. So I went on Instagram, and then there's an Instagram account called POC for Freedom. That's People of Color for Freedom Convoy. And the Instagram said, post your video, so let's show these people that we are not bots. So I said, okay. So I was in Toronto at the time at the Christie Pitch protest for the Toronto Freedom Convoy, Toronto Freedom March. And I just recorded the video on spot, uploaded it on Instagram and sent it on Twitter. And that's how I ended up doing that video.
So guys, apparently I am a Twitter bot because I went on Twitter and made a post saying that I am 34 years old. I have 2 boys, I'm an engineer and a project manager, and because I made a different medical decision, Justin Trudeau decided that he wanted to call me a racist, a white supremacist, misogynist, anti-science, and all of these other rhetorics. So I want these people who are saying that I am a bot to see that I am a real life human being. What goes into my body is my choice. You do not have a right to tell me what to put in my body and what not to put in my body. You do not have a right to tell me who to associate with and who not to associate with. Justin Trudeau must go.
Well, I think you're right when you say there was a lot of people who, in some ways, it almost saved their life, at least their sanity, when they saw themselves through the Freedom Trucker Convoy. I think I came across a Trudeau Must Go post where someone said just that, it saved their life. So it is, this narrative has gone, I don't know who really believes it, but then you have the leader of the country actually pushing things like the people who are concerned about the loss of democracy are misogynist, mostly racist. It's crazy. I'm going to go to you now, Dan. Dan, you're a familiar face to me. Actually, we've met online, but even after that, for those of you who don't know, Rebel News brings you the other side of the story to state-backed media. But we also, especially during the era of COVID-19, have been helping everyday Canadians, much like we're seeing posting these tweets, fight for simple things like the right to be able to, work or go into business without a mask, all the way up to being fined, tens of thousands of dollars of ArriveCan. And we do that with our charity partners at the Democracy Fund, who take on cases, over 1,000 cases for Canadians at no cost to them. Now, something that I wanted to pause here for a minute, because something we don't get to point out is that, when people like you are donating at fightvaccinepassports.com or Fight the Fines, you're not seeing everybody you help. We try our best to do some of the reports, but we'd be reporting on it all day long. And so now, Dan, you were a peace officer, and you also were one of the people who at the time couldn't get help publicly. But we did help you, set you up with a lawyer to see if we could help you. But one of the things I admire about you is you were a peace officer during this time where, the officer being told to enforce these mandates, and you really struggled with that issue. So tell us a little bit about what happened there and how that contributed to your Trudeau Must Go post.
Okay, well, there's a couple of things that definitely contributed to my whole Trudeau Must Go post. As far as what I saw in law enforcement at the very beginning, part of my background is in emergency communication and response. And I also deal with some of the larger, or I dealt with some of the larger response issues on the ground. And none of what I saw being done in the pandemic made any sense. It was very clear, I think, to anyone who thought twice about it, that nothing known to science stops an airborne pandemic. We don't have the ability to do that right now without literally locking people in their homes by themselves for a prescribed length of time. And then I started seeing that at the very beginning of the pandemic, that all these thought balloons, I guess you'd call them, were starting to come out from the government, from social media, all that sort of thing. It's where a news agency will float an idea to the general public to just see how many people take up with it. And when I started seeing them putting these thought balloons about masking, social distancing, lockdowns, all those sorts of things out, I knew right away that it would become some sort of law, right? Now, when the laws actually started coming through, and I was already getting in trouble with my sergeant at the time for saying, "Hey, wait a minute, this is not going to work. It's silly. It's some people aren't going to be able to do this." When I saw the laws actually coming through and I read them, it was like, wait a minute, there's no enforcement powers attached to this. None of the mandates that I saw actually gave me the ability to even ask for somebody's ID.
Mm-hmm.
So they were all being enforced using separate laws. And that to me is a really dangerous thing.
Mm-hmm.
So you're supposed to be stopping somebody for violating a mask mandate, but you can't actually use that violation to ID them. So they have to arrest them for trespass, or they have to stop them for harassment or any other law that isn't to do with the actual crime itself. And to me, that was a really bad problem. Now, as far as the whole Trudeau Must Go post, my daughter happens to be an illustrator who wrote a little known book called How the Prime Minister Stole Freedom. So she was the illustrator of that.
Yeah.
And I saw how much courage she had in writing that, or not writing, but illustrating that. And I'm like, well, you know what? If she could do it, why couldn't I? And I was honestly very apprehensive about coming forward and saying, hey, look, what went on over this past 2 years is not something we should forget. It's not something we should, just let slide. Oh, they're going to drop the ArriveCan app soon. Well, no, that doesn't cut it. What went on was a horrible thing, and it has far-reaching consequences that I don't think we're going to see the end of, possibly even in our lifetimes, given how much damage has been done. This hurt our kids, this hurt our seniors, this made our loved ones, who were in hospice have to die alone. And I think that, we should definitely not forget that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about this power being given without any sort of legislation behind it. It reminds me of when I covered one of the churches that were getting fined out in British Columbia, and the officers came to give the fines and were on the property, and then Carrie Simpson from the Canadian Voters Association said to the officer, what right, like what jurisdiction do you have here to be here? And they went back in their car, they couldn't answer, and they went in their car and they came out and they're like, oh, we got to go. And it was like, what is going on?
Which ministerial order is it that you're relying on?
What do you mean?
Well, there's a number of orders. Which one are you relying on?
Which one am I relying on?
Yeah.
Well, you're not allowed to gather, is what the rules now say.
So you're relying on the one that says you cannot gather. Do you know the date of that ministerial order?
Do you want me to go look up on my computer and provide it to you?
That would
Sure.
be helpful. Thank you.
Give me a second.
Second service is on the way. The officers are back. Just spoke with the supervisor, and Carrie from Culture Guard asked an amazing question. What order exactly are they here to enforce? The supervisor wasn't able to answer. He has to go check and see exactly what order he's enforcing.
But what I really like about this Trudeau Must Go campaign is just seeing what you guys are talking about here. Everybody is just real Canadians. I call you guys outstanding Canadians. Harveen, I know we didn't talk about it, but you work with children. If you want to quickly say the capacity of how you work with them.
Yeah, I am. I work with an NGO in Ottawa called Gen Environment, and basically we're trying to get them to learn how to grow food and sustain themselves, which is one of the greatest skills that people could have, especially nowadays.
Yeah, and so what I mean is you guys are from, whether it be the protection sector, you're working on your engineer, working with kids. That's how important and diverse the freedom-loving Canadians are. And this is just showing yet again, it's not a small fringe minority. When I looked earlier today, I think it was 4,000 tweets in the last hour of Trudeau Must Go. We'll see what effect it has, but I think it is opening some of the eyes of the people on Twitter at the very least. So thank you guys so much for being on Rebel News.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Mr. Butts isn't Trudeau's only ally. In fact, we have received a letter with the intention to be sued by Trudeau's disinformation czar, Jean-Christophe Boucher. You can find out all about that, but what you need to know is we need your help. We don't take a penny from the Liberal government to bring you these reports, and who knows if that's why this big lawsuit might be coming our way. So please help us cover our legal defenses to take on this fight and continue to bring you the other side of the story that the legacy state-backed media ignores. Please go to SaveRebelNews.com.